Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is a really popular webinar. So I can see you filing in at the moment. Thank you everybody for joining us. You just joined She Can Code's live webinar called Career Changes, Practical Tips for Job Hunting in Tech. I'm your host for today, Kaylee Batesman, the Managing Director, Community and Partnerships at She Can Code. For those tuning in who aren't familiar with us, She Can Code is a collaborative community working together to tackle the tech gender gap. You can join our community platform to find a supportive network of like-minded individuals, new opportunities in there and guidance to help you to excel in your tech career. We are a free community platform, so please go in and find over 5,000 real women in tech in there who are willing to help you, and you can hopefully help them as well by giving back. Now, before I introduce our wonderful panel for today, please note we have a live Q&A session running throughout, so please submit your questions and we will try and get to them at the end. So let's kick off with my wonderful guests for today. I have Natalie Whittlesey, Director at the InGroup. I have Ellen Chang, Lead Coach, Learning Disabilities Specialist at TripleTen. I have Jamie Ferguson, Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist at checkout.com. And I also have Daniel Osborne, Senior Software Engineer at Redgate Software. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on our panel today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you all here. We're going to start with some introductions, if that's okay, to set the scene for our listeners that are dialing in. Natalie, can we start with a little bit about you, please? A little bit of background.
Yeah, of course. So I've been in the technology recruitment industry for over 20 years, and I've mainly specialised in the senior end of technology, so hiring technology leaders, data leaders, digital leaders, etc. But also, because I've built up a community in that space, also hiring their teams as well. So I've got a few parts to my role. One of them is leading a team of people within our group who focus on hiring technology leaders. And the other part is CTech Engagement Director, which is all about sharing insights, creating events, writing articles, blogs, all of that sort of stuff, sharing polls data with the technology community. So I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me here today.
Thank you. And we've had you on previous webinars and you did such a great job, so we invited you back. So thank you for coming back.
Thank you very much.
Having your wisdom again. Ellen, yourself, can you tell us a little bit about you, please, and what you do at TripleTen?
Yeah, so my name is Ellen Chang. I am the lead coach here at TripleTen. I'm also the learning disability specialist. So I've been in the boot camp space for about 7 years. I've worked for various boot camps, including Flatiron School, App Academy, and TripleTen is my third boot camp. So I manage a team of wonderful coaches, about 15 coaches. 14 coaches. I co-lead it with my colleague, and also, we coach everything from software engineer, data science, quality assurance, cybersecurity, and we're opening up some other programs as well. Also, business intelligence analyst. So happy to be here. I've also been on the recruiting side, where in my past, I was a contract recruiter for Google. So we have a very eclectic bunch who has both been on coaching and recruiting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. And TripleTen, you can find more information about TripleTen on our website as well. Please go and check them out on our bootcamp page, all about them and how you can get involved. They do great things. We've done some brilliant content with some of your trainers as well recently. So if you want to hear more about TripleTen, please go and check them out on shecancode.io. Thank you for being here. Jamie, can we hear a little bit about you, please, and what you do at checkout.com?
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Jamie. I am a Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist at checkout.com, which is a B2B payments platform at the moment. I have about 6.5 years of tech recruitment experience, largely at kind of like hyper-growth fintech companies. So not technical myself per se, but do have quite a lot of experience hiring amazing technical people and working with hiring managers. So hopefully have a lot of interesting stuff to share about what we really look for in great tech talent.
Yeah. I hear so many ladies in our community say that. Not technical myself, that comes out of so many ladies' mouths that we want to hear that you don't have to be technical to work in the tech industry. Thank you. And checkout.com is a brilliant corporate ambassador of ours. So if you want to hear more about them as well, please go and check them out on our blog. And also they do amazing content with us. We've done some recently. And another brilliant corporate ambassador of ours is Redgate Software. So last but not least, we have Daniel Osborne. Hello, Daniel. Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do at Redgate Software?
Hi there. Yeah, I'm Daniel Osborne. I'm a senior software engineer over at Redgate Software, as has just been said. Day to day is just coding, getting paid to press keys in the correct order and keep things up and running. So, my career started, I'd say, just under 10 years ago now. Didn't go through university, just started off in tech support, coming from training to be electrician. And then semiconductor testing and creation, and then just worked my way up and accidentally ended up as a software engineer.
I love
my
that,
job.
accidentally. So many people in
Yeah.
our community accidentally ended up in tech. So you are in the right place. Fabulous. Well, we're going to get started. We have lots to chat through. This has been a very oversubscribed webinar. Everybody wants to hear about this topic. So many of our community are career switchers. This is going to be a brilliant conversation today, and we're going to kick off with what are the key transferable skills from non-tech industries that are most valued in the tech sector, and how can job seekers highlight these on their resumes? Natalie, can we start with you on that one? What do you think are the key transferable skills from non-tech industries? Because there are loads, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think all industries want certain things, regardless of whether it's tech, retail, manufacturing, whatever. And I think some of the things that they want is things like, have you got good communication skills? Can you engage? Can you build relationships? Can you learn quickly? I think a lot of companies these days hire on potential rather than what you actually already have. Can you understand the industry and how it fits? So when you talk about the tech industry, you could be talking about a physical tech company, or you could be talking about the functional tech roles within any industry. So that's kind of all encompassing. So whatever company you're in or looking at, it's about understanding that industry a little yourself. So if it's retail, for example, technology in retail may be about the systems that are in the shops, or they might be about the online e-commerce platforms, for example. They might be about how do they communicate with their end customer, user experience. Technology in another industry might be something else, but all of them have transferable skills. Communication, perhaps things like analytical thinking might be quite good. We see people potentially going from things like finance and accounting across to some early stage tech roles, for example. Project management's a great one. So if you've been in business project management, for example, often we see that you might be a business analyst or a project manager involved in a non-technology project. You suddenly get pulled into a technology project. Let's say it's an HR system, marketing system, and then they go, wow, you're awesome. Can you come across to technology, please? Because you've got a natural way of understanding things, communicating with people, building relationships. So we see it quite a lot there. And any sort of understanding of that end customer, whether it's some companies will have will be B2B, business to business. Some companies will be business to consumer, but you're always thinking about, what's the customer all about? So it's I guess that a little bit of commerciality maybe. And I think with some tech roles as well, data's quite hot. So if you've got a bit of an eye for data, I'm got to admit I'm not that great with that, but if you've got, again, it comes with that analytical thinking, that data understanding. So I think highlighting those sorts of things, if you're looking to transition, could be quite useful.
Yes, definitely, especially with product management. There are lots of ladies that we speak to in our community who are already doing that or doing something very similar and don't realize how how many of those skills align with coming into the tech industry, and how they can show that on their CV. I think that's the other thing. So we speak to a lot of ladies who say it's just finding the story of everything that you've already been doing and how that translates, and then being able to show that on your CV. Ellen, it was actually somebody from TripleTen I was speaking to recently. She transitioned from being a ballet dancer into tech and working at TripleTen, and she said it was just about how to tell that story of all the things that she'd done and the discipline of being a dancer and all of those skills that she then took into her next career. But I suppose you must meet a lot of people like that going through your boot camps that are kind of like, how do we just use those skills in a different way and come into tech?
Yes, yes. We definitely get a lot of career changers. And one of to go off of what Natalie said, one of the misconceptions is that a lot of our grads feel like, they're only their certification. They're only, the skills that were taught at TripleTen, and that they have to discard everything that came before. And so, like Natalie was saying, we work a lot because a lot of our grads think, oh, I have to go, if I'm going into tech, I can only go to a tech company. And we have to kind of rewire them and tell them, no, this certification is just adding to your story. It's just another tool that you have to offer, offer employers. And definitely, especially in the US, we encourage our grads to even look in their own backyard, so to speak. It doesn't mean like, definitely if you want to change your role, you can change your role, but maybe in your company, do they have a tech department? Because it's not just, it's not about you have to like throw everything out, including what you had before. Maybe there's an easier transition. And like what we say all the time is look for the lowest hanging fruit and then start there, you know? So it's like I was on a call with one of our grads and they were in the police department and they said, they don't want to do this anymore, that they want to do QA things. And I said, okay, well, that's great. And then I said, what opportunities can you start? Because really in this job market, what they look for is that eagerness, but also that eagerness in current projects. So I said, what are some current projects you can do for yourself? And he said, well, actually, the IT guys in our precinct, they've been trying to get me to do this project with them. And he says, but I don't want to stay in the police department. I don't want to. And I said, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But utilize your first project towards, gaining some experience. And then when you're ready, you can then, talk about that project that you did for other opportunities. And who knows, you may like it so much, you may stay, but if, or you may transition, but either way, you get something out of your current experience. So yeah, so it does happen.
Yeah, and something to put on your CV. Daniel, I can see you nodding along there. I suppose it's as well struggling to find a project to put on your CV. Ellen just, said there, like, just do it at your current company, even if you're going to move.
Yeah, 100%. I was quite connected with that story as well because the first project I did that broke that gap from just working in tech support, picking up the phone, helping people through, was a lot of complaints of, not complaints, but more pointing out in the office, we don't know who's active on a phone, who's active, like, doing some research in the background for a customer that they're not actively on the phone with at that point. So I just thought over the weekend and a week, it took me a lot longer than I thought it would, but make a little dashboard that played that really annoying airplane seatbelt noise whenever there was a customer waiting, and that would annoy the entire office, but then it made people know that there was someone waiting for support. And yeah, I did that, had that deployed, that had some red tape around it, but it was there. And that served as my when a position opened up in the same company, but working as a more software orientated role. That was a good thing for me to be able to point out and said, I have no qualifications in this. I am not qualified at all to do what you're asking me to do. But I was able to point to that and just go, I love it. It was a hobby. I really enjoyed it. And that did get my foot in the door, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you said tech complaints as well. You, I mean,
Yeah.
in support, you're going to get a few complaints, but yeah, I love that. Jamie, I can see you nodding along. Does that kind of resonate with you coming into tech? What happened there?
For me, it's slightly different. I think I was part of a recruitment agency that was hiring for really cool tech startups and scale ups. And I kind of realized very quickly that I was a lot more excited by the companies I was selling than the companies that I worked for, just in terms of everything, like the products, the culture, the pace, like all of that stuff. So my transition was a bit different, perhaps, but I definitely resonate with and agree with 100% what everybody's been saying around leveraging internal opportunities. It's sometimes the easiest way to get your foot in the door, because companies are quite often there's a high appetite for that type of internal mobility, and quite a big push in tech companies at the moment. In one of the companies that I worked at, Zopa, which is it's a bank now, it was a lender previously. We had numerous people that kind of moved across from the customer operations teams to engineering roles, and they're just amazing, like absolutely smashing it, because they have a unique kind of perspective and skill set that they can bring alongside the technical stuff that they're learning. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to do that, definitely see if you can.
Yes. And remembering as well the things that you do along the way, the projects that you work on internally and the opportunities. I spoke with one lady recently. She said every time I do a project, she makes a note in kind of a journal way, because when you do want to move roles, or you might want to transition into even into a completely different industry, you forget all the things that you've worked on. So she makes it a habit to write down, I did this and I did that. And I'm always ready to then lay them out on a CV and to explain the things that I've done, and even trying to find some places as well where you can work on different projects if it's not internally. We run hackathons that She Can Code, and they are for people that have never been to a hackathon, want to try something new. Come along and work on a project. You can put that on your CV, that you were thrown into a team of complete strangers for the day and you came up with an idea, and you might win. You never know. We do have prizes, but go along to a hackathon and try something, and you can put that on your CV. Our hackathons are free, so always go along to a free one if you can, in case you really don't like it. But find places online as well, like environments where you can collaborate with other people to work on challenges and projects as well, which is something else that we're looking to start with in our community, because people want to work on real world projects and to be able to say, I can do that, and this is how I can show that I can do those things. And they're all good things to put on your CV, ready for when you do move into tech, to actually highlight that you can do them. Ellen, I want to ask you a little bit about mistakes, common mistakes that you see that people make when transitioning into tech, and how can they be avoided?
That's a very good question. It's pretty much related to what we've been talking about, but one of the common mistakes they do transitioning into tech is, like I said, thinking that they need to forget who they are. And then the flip side to that is, and I think maybe it's just they forget the soft skills, I would say. Because definitely when people are transitioning into tech, they feel that the program, which is any program, is wonderful. TripleTen, our program is wonderful. Our program is meant to be asynchronous. You can work on it on your own time, and you can learn the different stacks and whatnot, the different coding languages or programming, what have you. You can definitely do that on your own time. But using the skills is one thing, And then talking about yourself and meeting people is the other piece that you have to do to get a role in tech. And a lot of people, yes, definitely we understand. Some people came into tech because they are introverts, and we completely understand that. So it's quite a feat to talk to them and to tell them, you're great. You're great in what you do and what you've learned, but now have conversations with people. And a lot of times, um, the networking and the talking to people tends to be devalued when it's your most important trait. If you can go and talk to people and tell them what you're learning, even if you're just starting out, what I recommend to this audience here is, as you learn, if you're planning to go into tech and you're learning, start talking to people about it. Start telling them what you do. We had a graduate recently who said, I've been applying, I've been sending out networking messages on LinkedIn, and I've been doing all this. And his coach said, okay, but what do you do in your downtime when you're not job seeking? And he says, well, I go to church. And then the coach says, did you ever think about talking about, because he's one of our data science students. So he says, did you ever think about, talking about data science to your church members? And he says, oh, I never thought of that. And so his first step was he brought a book to like an evening church event or what have you. And he was just at the pew and he was just reading. And this lady sat down with him and says, what's that? And he was telling him, oh, this is data science. And she says, oh, my son is a software engineer. And the next thing he knows, she's picking up her phone, she's dialing, she's introducing him to her son. They set up a meeting, and boom, it happens just like that. And so I think, to get back to your question, the most common mistake is people forget that it's also about talking to people and telling them what you do, which is going to help you transition into tech the best.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely. I can see so many nodding heads on our panel because I completely agree with that. That everybody that works in tech has said, it's one thing to have the technical knowledge, but to be able to then, once you're in your job, not just interviewing for the job as well, but once you're in it, being able to communicate with stakeholders and, communicate with other departments. And those soft skills are just so incredibly important. And it is never that misconception of working in tech that you work on your own, you work in a basement and you talk to nobody. And that is your job, Jamie. I can see you shaking your head like, nope, that is not my job. Do you agree? Like those.
Absolutely. I mean, when we think about typical technical interview processes, it's not just like a coding assessment or a system design thing and you're in. Like, you have to do well in those types of assessments, absolutely. And I'm talking about purely just like engineering roles here, but we have, stakeholder management type interviews, we have values type interviews. It's really about understanding how you work with teams across the business, non-technical stakeholders, how you build relationships. And that relationship part is really your power, and that's what kind of sets you apart from other candidates, really, because there are quite a few technical people these days. So actually you need to have more than that, and relationships are definitely the power.
Definitely. Daniel, I can see you agreeing very much with that. I think it is a misconception that you think you overthink the interview. I had somebody the other day tell me all about, she was worried what she was going to wear to the interview and what she was going to, the technical tests and all those things. So she'd almost forgotten the soft skills as well of just coming across as somebody that can just, build a network and have good communication skills in the interview as well. I take it your day-to-day is not you sitting on your own, not talking to anyone.
No, 100% not. No,
I bet sometimes you wish it was.
some days, but not many, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, when I first started out, like I said before, I worked on tech support. I did that for nearly 6 years. And I remember my first day, I did not want to answer the phone and start talking to some random stranger who's already starting off unhappy because they're calling for support. So I was very nervous about that. But then 6 years later, I was bored of it. I did not like it. But like knowing kind of how everything is now and doing interviews as well is part of my day to day. Having those skills of being able to talk to someone and being able to communicate with someone effectively at different levels. Some people would call up and they wouldn't know anything about the computer. They just know that something was wrong, and just helping them, walking through and communicating with them has already helped a lot in my day-to-day role now, where I'm talking with different people for different levels throughout the company and communicating exactly what's gone wrong, or taking what they say they want and converting that into actually how do I implement that to actually do what they want it to do. So yeah, definitely soft skills 100%.
Yeah, can be almost just as important as the tech skills, and can be sometimes forgotten about. Natalie, I saw you nodding along when the word soft skills come up, but do you think there are any other common mistakes that
I think what we're what we're talking about here is kind of hustling, isn't it? So what Ellen was talking about is hustling a little bit, and you know, Daniel's talking about I was kind of hustling because I did this on my own, and then I put it out there, and then I said, look what I did. You know, it's kind of that, it's using your initiative a little bit. And I did a poll last year for my community on LinkedIn to say, bear in mind they're quite senior community, but to say, where did you get your job? Did you get it through an internal promotion, through a recruiter, or through your own network? And a third of them, it was through their own network, right? They hadn't spoken to the likes of me or our team, or had a promotion. They'd hustled. They'd gone for coffees. They'd kept in touch with people. You know, if you're a hairdresser and you've got clients, and some of them work in tech or in business, well, what advice do they give you? If they got internships, if they got training trainee or work experience programs or anything, you know, what have they got? So I think a mistake is forgetting to hustle, you know, because there are lots of people perhaps in a similar situation to you, and you want to find ways to put yourself ahead. So yeah, that's what's going through my mind when I'm hearing all this.
Yes, definitely. I love that as a hustle. It's definitely a good way of framing that in your mind. We're going to keep moving through these questions because I can see so many questions coming into our Q&A, and I really want to get to some of them and not run out of time. So Jamie, could you share some actionable tips for networking effectively in the tech industry, especially for those who are new to the field? Networking can be a nightmare to some people. So do you have any tips for that?
Absolutely. I think this is a good segue from the hustle analogy as well. I'd say the first tip is find the right type of hustle or right networking medium for you. So, you know, there are things like external industry events that you can go to that kind of require you to, you know, perhaps walk up to strangers in a room and start those types of conversations, which can be so fruitful. Like research events, find topics that you're really interested in so that you can actually go and have meaningful conversations with existing kind of technical people, recruiters, whoever it might be. But also that can be quite a daunting thing for some people, and it's certainly not the only way to network. I think hackathons you just talked about as well, that can be quite a nice in between, because you've got such a mix of people and experience levels. You have really experienced engineers there that are doing it because they just love problem solving, and then you also have people that maybe have never done tech stuff before, and they're, you know, in a similar situation to you, and they're just there to give it a try. So that's kind of an environment that may make you feel a bit more comfortable, but still open up the door to kind of build those connections with technical people. But also LinkedIn, it's such a powerful tool. Like if you if you feel a bit safer behind, you know, the protection of a keyboard, let's say, connect with people that inspire you. Find companies that you find really interesting, find inspiring people and connect with them, and reach out with a little message and share a bit of information on kind of what you're interested in, where you're trying to get to. people are so open in tech, and there's such a big knowledge sharing culture in this industry. You'll be surprised by how many people are so happy and willing to give you their time and to talk about their own experiences and understand how they can actually help you. And I'd say also, you know, there's a lot of like D&I champions. So for women like yourselves that are trying to find ways to get into the tech industry, there are a lot of D&I ambassadors that you could very easily connect with on a platform like LinkedIn. So those would be my top 3 mediums for sure.
Yes, and great that they're also different as well, because some people just really hate the thought of networking, and they're better to do something on LinkedIn, for instance, or some people think, oh, the thought of having to go along to a hackathon and meet strangers and try something new, even if you're, you know, you might not be that confident in what you're doing yet, and that it's finding what works for you as you go through. We do try and make our hackathons open to everybody for that reason. With, like you said, more technical people there as well, and more experienced people to help, because they just like solving problems and they want to come along and help everybody for the day as well. But yes, you are correct. In our community, people tend to join and then drop on the live feed, hey, I'm so and so, I'm new here, I work in this area, please, you know, connect with me if you think you can help me with something, or I can help you. And they tend to drop questions on there, and we love that so many introductions are made via our live feed, because it is a nice way to introduce yourself without having to put yourself out there at an event or something like that. So it's definitely finding what works for you. Natalie, Daniel, I can see you both nodding along. We have, unfortunately, Eleanor's dropped off the line. She hasn't left us. We knew she was going to another meeting. But Ellen actually mentioned a story about church, and even mentioning networking within church, and that happened to connect one person to another person. What do you both think about, you know, actionable tips for networking? Because sometimes you can make connections in the most unlikely places, like church, talking about data. Do you have any tips for that?
I think they've been said, really. I mean, it's just going for it, isn't it? Telling people, asking questions in the nicest way. And I guess if you are going to invest in courses, I think you could also do something similar with courses. If you're on courses with other people, you know, connect with them. They're in a similar boat to you. Where might they end up? And then you've got someone that you can track and follow and keep catching up with every few months, or, you know, and, oh, you've landed there, or do they need anyone else, you know? So any way possible to sort of build relationships, because it's a lot easier to get somewhere through somebody that you know than to be in a massive, you know, hundreds of people all competing for a role, particularly if you're quite early on in your career or new, transitioning into a brand new field. So yeah, but I think the only other thing I can think of is maybe mentoring is quite hot as well, but you'd have to go to a fair amount of trouble, I think, to try and find someone who's perhaps transitioned as a mentor and learn from them as well. But you know, so that might take that might take having a look on LinkedIn, having a look at some perhaps target roles that you're looking at, looking back through their background. Have any of them made a career switch? They may have only joined LinkedIn at the point where they became technologists or joined the professional world, but perhaps that sort of thing could be useful as well.
Yes, we were asked about that so much in our community. So our mentoring program is free, and you can add skills for that reason. So you can say career switcher, for people to be able to look through the mentoring database to say, you match with the things that I'm doing, and then you can match and whether that person accepts, and then there's an 8-week program to guide you through. If it doesn't work out halfway through and you find actually your skills perhaps don't match in the best way, you can fire off a nicely worded email that kind of says this isn't working, and you can go your separate ways and find another match. But we had that question to us, and we had to launch that program earlier than we wanted, because it's really difficult to find someone on LinkedIn and you fire off a message and say, hey, will you be my mentor? And you're rejected, and you think it's really difficult to ask someone question. So if there is a database of pure-hearted volunteers out there that want to do that, and you can just look in and see where your skills align, then we decided, obviously, that's a place we can do it on our community. So yeah, it definitely much easier to find people that have switched their careers in that way. Daniel, I wanted to ask you a little bit about technical interviews. We get asked about this so much. People get really nervous about the idea of a technical interview and what is expected of them. So how can candidates prepare for and succeed in technical interviews, particularly if they're coming from a non-technical background?
Yeah, there's so many different things, like in terms of like the technical aspects, but then also just the human aspects. Like I said, I and my colleagues, we day-to-day job is just coding and everything, but then we are put into a pool and we will do the interviews as well, for people coming on. So there's always a technical person there. And a lot of people will start and immediately just say, hey, just to let you know, I've not come from this background. This is all new to me. And it's like, okay, cool. What's your name? They sometimes forget that they are human. Let's just have a chat. Let's just start from the beginning. Who are you? What do you currently do? What are your interests? And then go from there. And a lot of the stories, from people who either currently don't work in that industry at all, or do work in like another vertical that's kind of parallel to what they're applying for. Their stories of why they want to change have a lot of insight, or give us a lot of insight as to, their motivation for coming across. So it's not, obviously, at the end of the day, some people might just be like, it's a bit more money. But a lot of people are, I find it fascinating, or I've been working with this person who was doing this, and then I found myself helping them and actually enjoyed their role or what they were doing a lot more. So yeah, I'd say my first bit of advice is just remember you're human and you're going to be spoken to by another human. So just like, I know it's hard, it's easier said than done, but do try to more just relax and, remember who you are and, why you're there. In terms of the actual technical side, when you get to it, obviously boot camps and other things like that are also always a good thing. And not saying it's better or worse, but one of my favorite ones is when people just say one of the projects wasn't on like Leak Code or Coding Game or any of the other websites, is when they go, I had this problem and I just wanted to code a solution for it. So for example, one person kept saying about their bin day and they couldn't remember what bin it was. They already did like 3D modeling. They were an animation person, and they 3D modeled 3 bins with some LEDs underneath it, and then learned how to code to talk to an API from their council to light up the bin that it was for that day or the next bin that was going to be coming out. And just like little stories like that, it seems simple, but it shows more than just I did a thing to check a box. It's like, I have a passion for this. I enjoy this. And this is why I want to go into this world. So yeah.
And memorable as well. And they're going to remember that when you're going through that interview process, that interviewer is going to remember that story. Even if they forget your name, they're going to go, that guy that created the bin thing.
Yeah. I think it's just that human side and just showing passion for what you're applying for, more than just a checkbox exercise of I've done 700 boot camps and I can do all of these leak code puzzles. It's just, you showing interest and passion for it.
Yes, definitely. Natalie, I wanted to ask you a little bit about someone who feels overwhelmed by the pace of change and competition in the tech job market. If you're coming into tech for the first time, that's one thing, but the tech market changes so fast. So do you have any advice for someone who might feel overwhelmed by the pace?
Yeah, definitely. I think, first of all, don't feel you've got to be on top of everything all the time and constantly evolving and like the new latest thing, because even though new technologies do emerge all the time, people still need people to deal with the old technologies as well. So if you just want to be great at a certain, I don't know, Java or .NET or whatever it is, language, or just any area in tech, and you want to be brilliant at that, take the time to feel great in that before evolving when you're ready into, you know, the next iteration. So don't feel like you have to. However, there are some things that, you know, if you are passionate about it, you probably will do anyway. You'll probably subscribe to newsletters and blogs. You'll probably follow some influencers. You'll probably listen to some podcasts. So I have to, even as a tech leadership recruiter, I have to try and keep pace with tech trends as well, because otherwise I don't know what my clients are talking about. So I'm, you know, listening to podcasts and reading industry newsletters and articles and all of that sort of stuff. So hopefully, if you're interested and passionate about it, that's one of the great things about the technology industry. You know, it's why I've stuck with it for so long, because it changes all the time and it's so interesting. You know, everyone's talking about artificial intelligence at the moment, you know. There's been blockchain, there's quantum coming up. You know, it's so interesting. But you don't have to be an expert on it all. In fact, if you know one sentence about quantum, you're doing really well. So, you know, don't worry about it. Just do your piece brilliantly first, and then start thinking, how can I expand? How can I evolve? How can I learn when you're ready, or when you spot an opportunity? That would be my advice.
Yes, I love that. And to know as well that everybody else is feeling the same way that you are, and that you don't have to know everything. And we've all, and the words comes up often, imposter syndrome. We've all felt that way, and that you don't have to be sitting there thinking, I have to know everything about everything because I've moved into tech and I have to know all the new things. Most people don't. So you're absolutely right.
You can Google it, right? You can Google it. It's fine. You can pop it into ChatGPT.
Oh, exactly. We have a lot of questions in the Q&A, but I've got one more question for you, panel. I wanted to ask you a piece of advice each, or encouragement that you would give to someone who's feeling unsure about taking the leap into a tech career or pursuing new opportunities in the industry. Jamie, can I start with you? Do you have a piece of advice or encouragement for anyone on this line that is thinking, yeah, I think I'm going to give that a go?
Gosh, you went with me first.
Get time to think.
Yeah, no, I was like, I hope I'm last. What what would I say? It's probably super cheesy, but I would say go for it. It's going to be rewarding. However, don't do it because you think it's what you should be doing. Do it because you genuinely find something to do with the tech industry really interesting. Tech is obviously the way everything's going, and it's just all everybody talks about at the moment, and it's tech, and there's probably quite a lot of pressure perhaps to feel like you should be a part of that, or you need to be a part of that. Don't do it for the wrong reasons is what I'd say. There are so many other careers that are so essential and rewarding and necessary, and gratifying. So yeah, probably sounded like a bit of a like negative piece of advice. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying only do it if you genuinely feel super passionate about this and you think that it's going to be the right move. If it is, amazing. I don't think you'll regret it. There are so many different types of technical roles. You don't need to be technical to be in the tech industry. So I'm probably err on the side of you can find something that's for you, that you would be passionate about. But yeah, I don't know if that's very good advice, actually.
Really good advice, just remembering that passion and the reason why you came in. Daniel, you touched upon that earlier with, you know, examples of how you can actually use tech, and just showing that you have a passion for tech, and it's not doing the techie things, it's actually when you get in a company, the impact that you make for your customers and the people that you actually work with, that's the thing that you need to remember throughout your career, that passion as to why you joined the tech industry and helping people, and how you do that. Daniel, do you have any words of encouragement for someone that might be just on the cusp of making the leap?
Yeah, I'm kind of going off what one of the points that Natalie brought up. I thought it was really good. Is that it sounds imposing at first, but bear with me. It's always changing. You will never know everything, which is, it does sound imposing at first, but there is never, you'll never get there and just go, I've completed that, I'm bored of that now. There is always something you can go into. There is like down from embedded systems all the way up to like creating super fancy websites. I don't do that type of stuff, but there's a lot of scope in between, a lot of automation. Yeah, it's just never, it never gets boring. There's never a dull day.
Yes, I love that. You're absolutely right. And if you don't like something, you can try something else quite easily in tech, whether it's in your own company or moving to another. It is never boring, and there is always something to learn. Natalie, words of encouragement for anyone that's thinking of transitioning into tech.
On the same lines, really, start small, take that course, get that little bit of experience on your CV, create something, share it. Don't feel like you've got to buy everything all at once. Be consistent then, dip into bits of learning, articles, podcasts, keep ahead, stay in touch with people. But, small steps, I think, small steps will lead to where you want to get to on the journey, rather than thinking, gosh, I've got to do this, massive thing. So start small, be consistent, get that passion in you. But yeah, absolutely. As Jamie and Daniel have said, it's a brilliant industry to be in. It's a brilliant functional space to be in any industry as well. So, there's so much to do, upwards, sideways, there's new technologies coming out all the time. It's certainly served me well over 20 odd years. So, I can only recommend it.
Yes, I love that. Start small. Such good advice. For so many people who are looking to move into tech at whatever stage of their career, start small. I can see a lady in our Q&A, Eva. She said, "I'm nearly in my 50s." She's talking about studying for computer science, but she said, "I'm petrified making the career change at this late stage in my life, as I cannot afford to drop my present salary due to being a single mother with a mortgage." And so many people in our community feel that way. What advice would you give to someone like me? And that's exactly it, Natalie. Start small. In our community, we always say start with free resources and then move on to paid resources. But there are lots of wonderful free courses out there. Free boot camps, finding a community where people will point you in that direction as well, of other free resources that they have tried, that they have really enjoyed. Try free hackathons, free events, before you start moving on to paid or things that take up more time. And then when you really start to get committed, obviously you can start thinking about taking that leap. But anyone on our panel, any other advice that you would give somebody?
It's a brilliant question, and it's a really difficult thing, because when you change your career, you possibly are going to drop your salary, because you're starting again almost at the bottom, depending on what's happening. The very best way to do it is, as we've said before, transitioning in the company that you're in, because then they may match your salary but give you the chance, based on the fact that they know you're bright, you're passionate, enthusiastic, maintain that. And I don't know what the situation is with the person who's asked the question. That might not be possible, but it is possible that you could be making a sideways step salary wise, or even a downward step to then tick back up again. We can't pretend that isn't a possibility.
Yes.
But I'd say on average, technology careers pay really well. So, it could be a down to go up.
Exactly. And a sideways step sometimes is absolutely fine, if you're going to make that progression upwards eventually. I had a lady in here, Louisa. She's been in tech 10 years with various different roles. But one thing she is asking about, though, is about different job titles. She's unsure what job titles to search on, because she said she's particularly interested in IoT, smart grids, and other areas of clean tech. I think that's something that people can get confused about as well, with so many different job titles. Who actually does what for a living? Natalie, you mentioned podcasts. We run a podcast where we can just talk to people that work in tech about their roles, what they do, their day-to-day. And I think sometimes that's the key to finding stories of people that are actually doing it, and that visibility of what their day-to-day actually involves, because we can come up with some weird and wonderful job titles sometimes, and they really don't mean anything like what we actually do day to day. That's quite a challenge, isn't it, in the tech industry? I can see nodding heads. Daniel, I can see your job title is quite clear, but
yeah, mine, I'm fairly lucky.
Keep that knowledge, I suppose, finding good places where good stories are being told, and finding out where those people are doing good things, and finding out what their job title is.
So IoT, for example, so I love that, and it's really, really interesting space. You might think of things like if you broke down a job description, there may be some keywords in there, such as the word smart or the word sensors, or maybe the word, I don't know, automation or something like that. So the problem is, you're absolutely right. No two job titles are the same. Honestly, they can be the same role, they can have totally different job titles. So then it's about searching on keywords that you might find within that. And it's only by accidentally finding some that you can see those keywords to then find others. So it is hard, but I would think about those keywords and try and find them in other, and then look what the titles are. You've always got to look under the tin anyway, because even if a role says IoT leader, for example, when you look at it, it might not be what you thought it was. So you've always got to do that. But platforms might be another thing that might come up with IoT, for example. There's all these little words that you could search on.
Yes, definitely.
Think-
And yeah, looking under the hood a little bit more at that job title and what it actually involves.
So even from my perspective, as someone who works with a lot of people with a lot of various job titles, I wouldn't even know where to start in that. But my first go, if it was myself looking to, oh, I want to work with more, like you mentioned IoT style or embedded systems, I would talk to someone already who has kind of more of a wider scope, such as like if you find a good recruiter, they often have a lot of different touch points throughout the industry. So they'll know not maybe exactly the job title to search for, but at least where they can reach out and start getting talking with someone who is in that area, for sure.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, because job titles can really confuse people. I can see Louisa in here also asking about technical jargon. Where do I fit in with that? Because she's too long out of graduation, out of uni for entry-level positions, but struggle to understand the technical jargon. I suppose, again, that is an education piece, trying to find different resources that can help you with that jargon to prepare you for those technical interviews, for instance. Our hackathon is an environment for that as well. We say to our ladies, we had some brilliant ladies come along at our last one who they all worked in marketing, and they wanted to come along to hear the technical jargon to be able to communicate with their own tech teams a little bit better. So even if you're not highly technical and you want to just come along to a hackathon to hear what people are saying and to kind of familiarize yourself with that tech jargon, you can even find that at networking events. There is someone in here asking where's a good place to look for my first role in tech. I know you're all going to say your own companies. So much She Can Code, we have a job board, go and check it out. But yeah, do you have any advice on maybe entry-level roles or anywhere that you have come across that you've thought, that was a really good resource for me when I first started? Or any good training opportunities that you were all aware of when you started? We have a few ladies on here who have previously mentioned that Udemy was a really good place to get started for their training. Is that something that you've all used in the past?
I'd say my personal recommendation. I'm not saying the other ones aren't worth looking at, definitely. I just can't speak for those. But one that I really like, I can't remember the exact name of it at the moment, but on Reddit, there is a subreddit on there for smaller, like kind of hobby projects, just like a weekend project. It's a group of volunteers, no one's paid to do it, but someone will come up with an idea on like a Monday, and then you have until Sunday when there's like the showcase where you can all share what you did and how you did it or where you got stuck and discuss things. There's a lot of like little communities like that dotted around, some on Reddit, some on like Discord has their own groups as well. I think there's some also like groups or especially hackathon ones on the She Can Go website, but also on Facebook as well. I don't have Facebook, but my friend loves it. So yeah, there are little groups. If you can try and find like little groups for little solo projects or weekend projects, then definitely have a look at those.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and a place where you can just pitch in and not feel like that. A theme throughout this that you don't have to know everything. I have one more person in here quickly. They've asked, is it more beneficial to have basic knowledge of 3 to 4 programming languages, or to be highly proficient in 1 to 2? I suppose it's hard when you get started and you're thinking, I'm going to have to quickly learn everything and know everything. Is it best to just learn 1 to 2 and then go with those? And sometimes just to show that you're willing to learn and to be a sponge and to soak things up. What do you think there?
I mean, I'm not an engineer, so maybe Daniel, you can take this one. But from my experience, I'd say better to not to be like jack of all trades, master of none. Focus on one. Try and be a little bit more of an SME. I wouldn't think it necessarily limits you too much in terms of the opportunities that you can get, because quite often, or at least in the companies that I've worked at, when hiring for entry level or junior talent, if somebody's like a Python professional, for example, but actually we're a Java house, we'd still let them do the interview in Python just to actually see their ability and see the quality of their code and their problem solving within that specific language, with the vision that they could kind of pivot to Java once joining. So yeah, I'd say focus on one to begin with.
That is wise. And I've spoken to people who before have been into a technical interview and they've only just learnt something, and they probably admitted to me they weren't very good at it, but actually they still got the job because the employer saw them as just somebody that was willing to learn and try and soak up a new programming language of all of like 2 weeks before the interview, and they still got the job. So I think it's just that willing to learn sometime. We are nearly out of time. I can also see one of our regular community members, Connie Foster. She is a brilliant member of the community within She Can Code, and she's asking a little bit about her gap on her CV due to caring responsibilities. I suppose that, how do you explain that without working against you? I suppose that's a lot of what we've spoken about today as well, of finding a way to tell that story on your CV and to transfer all of those really good skills, those soft skills, and other things that she even would have learned during her time off. A lot of parents say that as well, that all the skills they learn when they're parents and then they come back to work and they brought all of those extra skills with them along the way. I suppose is a good way to try and fill that gap on the CV. But we are already out of time. Thank you to Natalie, Ellen, who was here earlier, Jamie and Daniel as well. Thank you all so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For everybody who joined us, thank you so much for coming along, all of your questions. It's always a pleasure to have you all on here. If you want to watch this again, or you know anybody that wanted to watch it and missed it, we will be posting this video on shecancode.io tomorrow, and it will be in our community as well. If you're not already a community member, which I hope you are, please go along to community.shecancode.io, and you will see lots of other women in tech in there, and lots of male allies as well, who are all collaborating and helping each other. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you in April for our next webinar. But as always, thank you everybody.
Cool.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.